Hello YouTube. Yes, it's 5 p.m. for me and I'm still drinking coffee. That's, like I said, what my channel runs on. So today we're going to talk about vehicles and tiering and how that affects your insurance policy, how that really plays a factor. It's a very large piece, is the tiering levels that you are put into. And we talk a lot about it in this channel, but I don't call it tiering, I call it a profile. Essentially, a company is going to create a profile based on the person, which is a lot of stuff which we're going to go over. We're going to make it really fast and simple, so we're not going to dive too in depth, but if you have more questions about it, definitely leave it in the comments below. If you do want to support the channel, you can buy me a cup of coffee below as well. Otherwise, just liking it is good enough for me. It's a relative concept. Having car insurance is always been a pain. Everybody hates the fact that the rates go up and they change and there's corporations that are ripping us off and all of that stuff. It's annoying. And the problem is that we keep constantly finding companies that are cheaper and they're new. And then they get more and more expensive as time goes by. And before you knew it, you might as well just stayed with the first company. So how do these companies rate what you're looking at? Well, tiering starts off with the area or the location that you live in, and it's all about the claims that happen around you. So it could be that you're a perfect driver, but you have a lot of accidents in your area. So there is a risk or a chance that somebody else is going to hit your car, damage your car, steal your car, whatever the case is. So that risk is going to play a small factor based on the location that you're at. Now, a lot of states have actually wised up to know that zip codes are not the only thing that you can rate. So they've created these territories, which is different than the tiers that we're talking about. The territory is specifically a piece just to track what large area that you can be in, because they can't pin you down to a zip code because the guy across the street might be just as at risk, but because they're in a better zip code, they're getting a better deal. So some states have fixed that to where they're doing territories now, which is a lot better for everybody. So we know where you're living. That's the biggest factor to play, where you can't really control it unless you're moving. If you're moving, check with your agent. They'll give you some rates. They'll figure out what the prices are. Now, wherever you're at, it doesn't play a big factor because you're already there. So let's find out what levels of tiering there are. There's 3 tier levels. There's preferred, standard, and non-standard. So as you guessed it, preferred is the person that is older than 25 years old. I'm sorry if you're under 25. Typically, in most states, you're automatically pushed down to the tier below or even the tier below that. And that's because the statistics say that younger drivers under the age of 25 have higher accidents, higher claims, higher tickets. They're overall a riskier group. And it's unfortunate for those that you are great drivers just because it is what it is. You're categorized with the distracted driving world, which is usually 25 and under. That's not to say that everybody's not distracted. I find myself doing similar things as well. And I'm starting to see a trend where pretty much now that the older generation is also playing on their cell phones and checking their Facebook and their Twitter and all that stuff between red lights and green lights. And it's becoming an issue, which hopefully autonomous cars take over and that'll just fix it all. So tier 2 is the non-standard. That's typically a 25-year-old person or older, and they may have one ticket. They might have one accident, and it's typically a not at fault accident. So if you're kind of falling in that mediocre time frame, you've been with your insurance company for about a year or so, and you're just not a risk or not a risk. And that's kind of your middle tier. And I actually, honestly, that's where most companies price their pricing at. Not many companies are going after that high tier because there's so few people that fall into that. Typically, the person that is in that high tier is the 50 to 55-year-old, has spouse, no kids, owns home, perfect scenario, and doesn't have any claims, tickets, accidents, comprehensive, no deer, no theft, no vandalism, all of that stuff depending on the state you're in. That's your high tier. So your mid tier is between that 30 to 50-year-old. It could be a couple years plus or minus, but it's one ticket, one accident, maybe a ticket and an accident. It's not going to make a big difference. And they're just generally a decent driver. They have one car, they typically have a good vehicle history, and they've been with their current insurance for 6 months or more. Well, that bumps you down into the last tier, which is the third tier, which is the non-standard. Those are non-preferred, as some companies call it. That's where your generals and your higher risk companies play a factor, because they actually gear their prices towards that tier. And that kind of makes sense, as you have heard maybe our past videos where we talk about profiles. Those profiles are those tiers. because that company is trying to get that specific profile or tier because they know that there's a market there. If they can price it just enough to where they'll make enough money and be cheaper than the guy above them, then they're gonna win that battle. Well, that person that fits in that bucket, that profile or that tier, has a DUI or has multiple accidents that are at fault, has multiple tickets, is under 25 with an accident and a ticket. So that's typically your non-preferred or non-standard tier. That will unfortunately change the price for you pretty drastically. So when you look in the comments below, you'll see a lot of people in almost any of my videos ask, how do I buy you a cup of coffee? Well, it's below. No, they'll ask if the why the price is so high. They're paying $300 to $400 to $800 a month, which, I mean, a limo, you might as well rent one at that level. But they're paying that much because they have a nice car, they had a few claims, they had a couple tickets, maybe they got like a minor in possession or something. I don't know, you had a party, you were at the party and you shouldn't have been drinking. It happens, right? And we all have kind of, or most of us have lived that portion of our lives. Some of us have been caught and some of us haven't. And that just categorizes you in those tiers. I'm not saying be proud of it, but don't necessarily be ashamed of it because you are not alone. There's a lot of people out there that have had those situations. Unfortunately for you, you're going to pay the most. You're going to pay those $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 a month, depending on the vehicle that you have and where you're located. That's not the only pieces that they rank as far as tierings go. That's kind of the idea of what those levels are. So how do we fix that? How do we get the best deal, the best price? How do we get out of these tiers or these rankings that we feel is unfair? Well, to be honest with you, your best route is to shop, to check 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 companies, depending how much time you have, and find the best one that's a fit for you. Now, what I would recommend is possibly leave a comment if I have enough time. I'm getting a lot of questions about what companies I should look at, and you would leave me your age and your state that you live in, and I can recommend a couple companies. If you've got tickets, let me know. I can try to do some research for you. It only takes me a few minutes because I've actually done it so much that I can quickly tell you what companies are competitive. So that first route, you're gonna check with 1, 2, or 3 companies because that's about all I'm gonna recommend at this level. If you wanna check multiple companies, I'm gonna put a link to a company that you can do an app or you can go online and talk to somebody if you want, and you can get quotes from 17 up to 30 companies. So there's a ton of options with one quote. It's not one of those you get 30 million phone calls, it's just one company, one quote. It's really nice and simple to do. That's a benefit. Now, the third way that you can do it is you can check with friends. If you've got friends that have similar situations or parents that have kids that are getting good rates, you can check with them as well and get kind of those referrals and find out which companies in your area are doing really well. Either way you go, a couple things to note that are going to play a factor. I got some notes here because there's so many of them, but age, gender, marital status, depending on the state, location, driving experience, when did you start driving, driving record, previous insurance claims, that's what we're talking about today. Credit score is a big piece of the tier. It's called an insurance score, but it's tied to your previous credit. Ability to pay, ability to have good scoring, it affects your insurance as well. And then the year, make, and model of your vehicle, because the safety features make a difference. If you're in the video that I just made over here, where it was the most stolen vehicles in the highest risk areas, you can watch that as well. And that'll give you an idea of some of the places you don't want to have and some of the cars that you might want to stay away from that could cause the rate to go higher. Either way, you've taken the first step, and I'm proud that you guys watched this video all the way through because it gives you that power, that ability to know what your options are. If you're unfamiliar, if you're going to shop for different insurance, apart from the link below and you just want to learn more about it and research more, I'm going to put a couple videos over here that will benefit you. Let me know if you have questions. I'm happy to help where I can, and hopefully on this channel there's a lot of videos. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you want more of these tips. Hit the bell icon so you get the notifications. Otherwise, I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.